be coming in here. I'll mute them, but it takes them a couple minutes.
Okay.
And we can unmute when we want to say hi. Actually, Haley knows how to do this just as much as me, but I'm.
Hey, Soren.
Hi, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
We're gonna, I'm muting everybody for a moment. And we're gonna introduce our dear, dear friend, George Mumford, in a moment. So George, I'm asking you to unmute. So yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
There we go. I'm going to give a little introduction to you, okay, George, and then we can
Okay.
open it up. And or Haley, do you want to? I don't know exactly what you guys did with Rhonda, but we can do what you guys did. But before we begin, I just want to introduce our dear friend George Mumford. George is known in many different aspects. He's a longtime colleague of John Kabat-Zinn, was back in the early days of bringing mindfulness into all kinds of different communities, the inner cities, the prisons, sports in particular. He's the author of the book, The Mindful Athlete. If you have not read it, please read it. If you have children or friends or family who are interested in the whole domain of mindfulness and sports, it's kind of like the Bible for how to integrate mindfulness into the sports world. And George tells his story. Tomorrow we'll be releasing the interview that George did with John Kabat-Zinn and Phil Jackson. George also worked with Phil Jackson during the championship years of the Los Angeles Lakers and Chicago Bulls. I think, George, we figured out that you were involved with was it 6 out of 7 years World Championship basketball
Yeah,
team?
so between 96 and 2002, that 7-year period, we were involved in 6 NBA championships. And then, of course, there were 2 more, 2009 and 10. So I've been involved in 8 NBA championships with Phil.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's just a pleasure to have you here today, George. You're going to lead a meditation, and you're also going to take in some questions from people. So if you have a question, you'll have a chance to raise your hand a little bit later on, and we'll bring you in. Haley, do you want to open it up and have people say hello?
Sure. I will make it so you can unmute yourself if you want to come on the screen and say hi to everyone.
And if you go to speaker view, you should be able to see
Hello.
gallery view. You'll be able to see everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Lauren. Thank you, George.
Hi,
Everybody. Honor.
Hi, George.
Hi, George. The number.
George.
Hi.
Everybody from the UK.
Hello, everybody.
This is wonderful.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Soren.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
everybody.
Hi, guys.
So has everyone got to speak? Haley, we got to say hi to a lot of folks.
Yeah, we can do that again at the end if we want to also.
Okay, so, you know, my Christian background is coming up. For a minute there, it sounded like the Tower of Babel. Everybody was saying hi, and there was a whole lot going on. And I said, I was just imagining, I wonder if that's the way it sounded back in the day when no one could understand each other. Although we could understand each other because even without the words, I could feel the love. I could feel the connectedness, the excitement. And so my intention today is just to have a little bit of practice and then open it up for a conversation. You know, people will be able to ask some questions. So we'll go into silence. But I want to just recognize that what was really important and powerful is the fact that I got to say hi to a lot, you know, to you folks, and you got to say hi to me, and we greeted each other. and the thing that I think about, and I think the image that I hold in mind is that on this, well, the whole planet, but people on this, this Zoom, I'm on this Zoom and we're on this together, and the intention is to speak soul to soul, Buddha nature to Buddha nature, mind, masterpiece to masterpiece, and to really start off with the original blessing, start off with this fact that we have Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, the divine spark, the masterpiece, and that the intention is to be able to allow that soul energy, or that energy, that Buddha consciousness to be expressed in our conversation and our being together. And this practice is a way to reconnect with ourselves. So it's a practice of tuning in, so that we could be fully present for ourselves and others. And I like to talk about, the way I like to teach is the fact of the matter is we have a body, and the body is always there. So I like to practice what I call awareness of breathing. And so I usually start off a session with arriving, which means we'll sit and then we just let go of all the activities before and after, so that we actually use this space as an oasis or as a refuge, where we consciously set things aside, put things aside, and there's a lot going on. If you think about it, you know, I've had recent deaths in my family. I have friends, including Soren, that live in Santa, you know, wherever parts of California where there's forest fires, and of course there's coronavirus, and there's the racial injustice and climate, and all of these things that are happening, too numerous to really reflect on and talk about, or to hold in mind all at once. Not to mention, we've broken a few glass ceilings, or at least one, where we have a female vice president, Kamala Harris. And there's just a lot of wonderful things going on in spite of all of the crises we have. And so just to be able to use this time to just be in the moment, be with each other in a way where we're able to set that stuff aside and just be present to our being present to our own being, our own nature. And so I invite you to just close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. But the idea is to be sitting, and to be seated in a way where your sternum is straight, and there's a little tension in terms of sitting upright, but we're not rigid. And there's this ability to close the eyes, lightly shut the eyes, so that we're not holding undue tension, and to just become aware of the fact that we are sitting and breathing. So the idea is to notice that there's a body. The body is here, and you can feel it, where the feet make contact with the sit bones, or the butt makes contact with the chair or the cushion, wherever we happen to be sitting. And to just notice, you can feel that we're sitting, and then you could start out by breathing a little bit deeper on the in and out breath. Just take a few in and out breaths deeply. And just noticing that as we breathe in and the belly expands, the lungs expand, we can feel the entire body as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, we can be aware of the entire body. So it's just sitting and breathing and knowing it, just to the extent that we know there is a body, and there's an ability to have a continuity of mindfulness, of awareness, and just being with it. And this idea of being alert and relaxed, having this receptive, relaxed way of being, where we're just allowing whatever's here to be here. So we're just resting in the breath, resting in the body, resting in the moment, trusting in the moment. And so the image I'd like to offer is it's just like if you think about the ocean, and people have been at the beach, I've been at the beach myself, that at the surface, there's waves that can be sort of turbulent, especially because of the winds or whatever, and that there's a way of just being still and knowing, or resting in the breath, resting in the body, in a way where we can drop down below the surface where it's calm, cool, and collected. And even if we were to drop an anchor from a boat, it goes down and it just settles on the bottom, regardless of the currents or regardless of the turmoil or regardless of what's happening on the surface, so that we have this ability to be still and know. We have this ability to drop down, drop into this place of ease, of stillness, so that we can be a silent witness to our experience, so that we could just be, could be as simple as just noticing that we're sitting and breathing, relaxing into it, which means just letting things be. Thoughts come, images come, sounds come, sensations come, and we can just notice them from this place of alert, relaxedness. So we're alert, but we're relaxed, we're at ease, and we can just relax even more. We can rest even more, and just letting things be. The body is here, there's breathing happening, and we can just be with the breath in the body as we sit. And so when we get involved in thoughts, images, or sounds, just by thinking about the body, thinking about the breath, we're there. And then it's just a matter of dropping down below the concept of body and breath, and just be with the sensations that's present. Expansion, contraction, heat, coolness, tingling, pressure, noticing the surfaces that are making contact with the body. And we can even just actually silently even smile to ourselves, what we call the inner smile. We can just smile to the fact that we're breathing, sitting and breathing and knowing it, and that right now everything is okay. There's nothing wrong in this moment. Just sitting and breathing and knowing it, and letting go of thoughts, images, sounds, other than the image I offered in terms of dropping down into that stillness, that silence, that steadiness of the anchor just resting at the sea bottom. And that we're really making a shift from doing to being. And what does that mean? That means just being with the body, being with the breath, while sitting and breathing and knowing it, feeling it, experiencing it. And when thoughts come, we just notice thoughts. And then we, just by thinking about the body, thinking about the breath, the mind is there. Sitting and breathing and knowing it, to the extent that we know that there is a body, for continual awareness or mindfulness, and for just the practice of bare awareness or bare attention. We can feel what it feels like when we're sitting and breathing, distinguishing breathing in from breathing out. And if we can't distinguish, it's okay too. Just be aware that breathing is happening. And we can always just allow ourselves to totally breathe out. And then you will breathe in. And you can also just breathe in as much as you want, and then breathing out. But the idea is to allow the breath to breathe itself, and just to be a witness to it, aware of it. So we're not trying too hard, or we're not using this force focus. We're using just the right amount of energy, not too little, not too much, just enough to notice that we're sitting and breathing. And if we find ourselves trying too hard, then we can dial it back a little bit. We can ease up on the effort. And if we find ourselves being a little bit sluggish or not being able to make contact, then we can bring more energy in. That means we can bring more effort to bear. But the idea is always to gradually build up or gradually bring it down, so that there's an ease, there's a grace to it, there's a flow to it. Noticing, relaxing, letting go, letting be. So there will be periods where I don't talk, and the idea is for you to be able to monitor yourself and notice, am I with the body and the breath, or am I involved in thoughts, images, sounds? If it's thoughts, you can just notice thinking, just by thinking about or directing your awareness, what I call directed thought or applied thought, just thinking about the body, thinking about the breath, and you're there, and it's just a matter of being with what that feels like to be sitting and breathing. The body and the breath becomes a place of rest, a place of resting, being still, being silent, just noticing without interrupting or interfering, pulling towards or pushing away, just letting be. And so for those who may be entering, we're just sitting and breathing and being aware of it. This is something we do all the time. We're just sitting and breathing in and breathing out. We are becoming more intentional about observing the process of sitting and breathing with no agenda, with no goal, other than to rest in the breath, rest in the body, and allow whatever is here to be here, and to just notice, relax, and let go, which means we don't have to keep thinking about it or reflecting on it. Just let it be, and just rest in the breath, rest in the body. Just noticing, relaxing, letting go. Be it thoughts, images, sounds, sensations. So continue to be aware of sitting and breathing. I'd like to read something from T.S. Eliot that symbolic of what we're doing. So continue to be aware of sitting and breathing while I read. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Momentarily, you will hear the sound of the chime, which signals the end of the sitting with awareness of breathing. So allowing the sound to rise and fade away. Okay. All right, so you can open it up for Q&A, questions.
So if you have a question, if you go under and you click participants, there's a place to raise your hand, and then Haley and I can grab you from there. So if you go under participants, you should see a button, a hand button. Looks like Joe found one, so we'll bring in Joe. Let's see. I think you're live and unmuted, Joe. Just know that if you do get chosen to ask a question, you are visible to people throughout the Zoom and also on YouTube. So.
Hi, and thank you for calling on me, Soren, and thank you for just a lovely meditation, George, and thank you to everybody for holding the space tonight. George, I have a real interest in working with young performance athletes, predominantly swimmers at this moment in time, ages sort of 8 through to about 16.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of children who have been in a competitive environment, really beating themselves up, taking the results of one race into another, it affecting an entire gala, taking the weight of expectations, trying to get qualifying times, and you know, a few years of doing that, them walking away from the sport that they loved. I've done some work with our local swimming club, which is Corby Swimming Club in the UK, and had some great results with some of the kids. Just about, you know, telling them to take one race at a time and just to be in the moment, and using little mindfulness practices for them to do that when they get on the starting blocks. I wonder if you have any advice for me about what else I can bring to them and help them, so that, you know, they're not feeling crushed by the weight of the expectations that they put on themselves, or that they feel are coming from their parents or from their coaches, and just to be able to, regardless of it being a gala, just to be able to go in and be in that moment, to actually celebrate and enjoy what their body is doing for them and what they're actually achieving.
So teaching them how to be in their body, that's what I call it, so that they know they're in their body, and to understand the relationship between their body posture, and their self-talk, and helping them to, it starts with the training, because there's learning and practicing, then the performance, and performance is only about 10% of it. So how they train and how they learn how to self-regulate, in the sense of being able to make a mistake, let it go and move to the next thing, is really important. And to focus on the moment enough, and focus on focus on what they're doing, not how they're doing. But so much of what they're doing is tied up in their self-image, or how they want people to see themselves, or what their expectations are. So to me, it's really a simple practice, just like we were doing today. Just notice, relax, and let go. Just understand, oh, okay, how do I get them to the point where they can observe their experience without judging? So the mindfulness, but also you have to have faith, and you have to have some understanding, some information, or some knowledge about what it is we need to do. So how do I stay in the moment? How do I change my mind to make my mind my best friend, rather than it being the enemy, where it's telling me I'm not going to fail, or it's negative? And so the self-talk, this recognition of the self-talk, and getting into thoughts of thinking about how they're going to do things. So the training and the error correction, without attributing the error to them not being strong enough or fast enough, or having the wrong body type, or any of that stuff. Just focusing on task, like, okay, how do I do this? So the skills, knowledge, and experience is really important. But the mental part of it is just teaching them how to be still, and have a place where they could just rest and let go of everything, let go of the thoughts and the images, even the results, but just to practice being in the moment. And so you have to figure out how you want to train them, but the training is the place to do it. When they're doing their learning and practicing, the environment, if it can be less stressful, and there's a way of relating to them and helping them to error correct without judgment. So it's more than that, but for the most part, it's getting them to a place where they can let go and just do the next thing. So I call it make the next play. So you made a mistake, you mentally note it, just like when we're sitting, you mentally notice you're involved in thoughts or images or sounds, and just noticing, just come back and reset, and then start over again. And then you can start to strategize on it, because what they're getting is telling you what they need to learn.
Yeah.
So learning, practicing, experiencing, and the experience is telling you what you need to learn and practice.
Okay.
And talk to them about that. You have to talk to them about the fact that you have unconditional love. And this is what they call, when we coach and teach people, it's called the Lasada line. It means that if you give them one-to-one, one thing they do really well, the one thing they don't do so well, it's to get to elite level performance, it's got to be something like 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 6-to-1. So catching them doing something right and building on that, and helping them to understand that mistakes are part of the process. It's not the end. In my book, I talk about success is 99% failure.
Yeah.
So it's helping them to understand how to relate to the situation where they're learning. They're in the growth mindset, not in survival mode. But you can only be in one or the other. So getting them to be a learner and to learn, how do I do this? How do I self-regulate? Which is self-regulation, is self-generating thoughts, feelings, and actions. So how do you do that? So you have to, what's the body language? What's the self-talk that's consistent with being okay and stepping up to the box and block and just diving in? Forget about the time, forget about everything, just one stroke at a time. There's a swimmer, I think her name was Coughlin or whatever, and she focused on technique. So you have a goal. So it's not just goal-oriented, it has to be process. What's the process that's going to get you there? And if you focus on how to, perfecting your technique so it enhances your time, that's the way to go. So it's really getting into the whole process of training. 90% of it is learning and practicing.
Thank you. I've spoken with them often about just actually getting out of the head and being in the body, and that point that when you're moving the water and you're gliding through the water and you're not fighting, and it's a much more of a sensory thing. So sort of like leaving the head behind and things. So what I'm hearing you saying is really focusing on that, but predominantly in a training environment. So therefore, by the time it comes to a competitive environment, it's second nature anyway. They know what that sweet spot feeling is within the body.
Yeah, but thinking, so sometimes if you try not to think and you think, and then you keep thinking and you're trying not to think, that's not going to affect you. That's going to affect your confidence in a way where you're going to feel frustrated. Sometimes it's better just to focus, to change the self-talk to what you want. Like I call directed thought, just one stroke at a time. Just focus on, you know, gliding in the water or whatever. So it's a directed thought. Like when I was saying, come back to the way to come back, instead of saying come back to the body, you just think about the body and it's there. So focus on what you want. And so that's what I call directed or applied thought, but that's all you need. Once you get in the direction, you don't have to think anymore. You just let it happen.
I get it. I
get what I'm saying? So the
what...
self-talk, because for the say that to stop them from thinking at all, that's not what it is. Thoughts are going to be there as your relationship to them, so that you get to the point where you can be aware of thinking, like background music in the restaurant, instead of trying not to hear it. Just let it be. That's why, like you said, notice, relax, let go, and just focus on what you want. Okay, the next thing, move your feet, you know, get on the blocks, ready, set, go, and just swim. And then say, okay, just swim one step at a time. It's okay. You're doing okay. It's going to be fine. You know, just be in the moment.
Thank you. That's been so very, very helpful. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much.
Great question. Thank you.
Thank
you. Andrea.
Hello. Hi, George.
How you doing? You know what I say, no struggle, no swag.
No struggle, no swag. That's the famous quote that we use in our athletic department for sure. George, you use the phrase silent observer. And I was just hoping that you could elaborate on utilizing that role a little bit more. I know that's something that I've been practicing with after reading your book. And just elaborate a little bit more on the role of silent observer and how that maybe can help between the space between stimulus and response.
Yes, so what I mean by that is being a silent witness or silent observer is just noticing what's happening without being identified with it, without needing to interpret it or to push it away, to pull it towards you. Just let it be. So you're just observing. And so that's what we have to do. We have to understand that we have this ability to step back and observe our experience. But the way we observe it is with you know, mindfully, which means, you know, you're paying attention to a particular, you know, in a particular way in the present moment and not judging. So it's just noticing, just let things go. It's like you're watching something, like watching TV or watching a commercial, and you just watch it with fresh eyes, without any judgment or without any preconceived notions, just to be open. So it takes a certain level of confidence or trust to be vulnerable and trust in the moment and allow things to speak to us in its own language. So to be a silent witness is like you're in a classroom or you're watching somebody else coaching and you're not supposed to talk, you just observe. Or you watch somebody teaching a class, or you watch two people having a conversation and you're just noticing what's going on. And you can notice if you have preconceived ideas or you're looking for things instead of letting what's happening speak to you in its own language in the moment. But it takes a certain level of vulnerability to do that. But that's what's required. So that's what I mean, silent witness. You just watch your experience without identifying and without pushing, just be still and know. And when I say rest in it, that means rest means not to bring energy in or to do anything, just rest and just be still, be silent, which is really challenging because we don't do that. We want to be engaged. And even if we're being still and silent, we want a commentary about our experience instead of letting the experience be there. It's like watching a conference or watching, you know, the Democratic convention without having a commentary, which is what was happening. Instead of somebody telling you, oh, this is what you should be seeing and this is what's going on there. That's their opinion, muddying up the possibility for you to see it in your own way. And like I said, you know, to, you know, not cease exploration. And in the end of all our exploring, we will arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. So a lot of our experiences, we're looking at things based on what we know what our experience is, rather than having a beginner's mind and allowing things, seeing things in a fresh way. But it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of vulnerability to do that, because we have these ideas about us knowing things before we really know them. So it requires a don't know mind. I don't know. Let me see what comes out.
I love that. Thank you, George.
Yeah, great question.
Mhm.
You want one more, George? Or how's your
Yeah, as
time?
many as, yeah, I don't care. As much as you have, we got time. Just go for it.
Right. Dr. Delise Coffee. Let's see. Are you?
You gotta unmute yourself.
Delise, let's see.
Okay, you're good now.
Yes, well, first, thank you for that session. It was very good. I use imagery a lot, and I also do breath work a lot. And I got interested in mindfulness last year when I saw you at the Sports Psychology Convention. So,
okay.
Yeah, I bought the book, and I'm interested in that as well. So I'm wondering how I can combine both of them, imagery and mindfulness, and be more effective, or is this something I'm supposed to keep separate?
No, well, here's the interesting thing. We think in images. We have images, and sometimes the imagery helps us to think. So it's not either or, it's the skillful use of it, because we're using our imagination all the time. So we make a mistake, or let's just say we have a challenging relationship, and we're having a conversation with the person and they're not even there. And we're playing it out in our mind. So imagery is really important. Using our imagination is really important. So it's like, yeah, so it's, to me, it's always about, is the technique determining what you be, or what information or the understanding are leading to the technique. It's like it's an existential thing, is the understanding comes first before you apply the technique. So understanding, okay, I would like to use this, and how can I use it in a way where it enhances? So you can see when you're doing practice, if you have a imagery that helps you get calm or helps you stay locked in, then that's helpful. So I don't see any difference, because we're using our imagination all the time. We just we're not aware of it, or we don't acknowledge it. Just like people have this idea that meditation is when we're sitting and we're just being still. And I'm saying meditation is a 24/7 event, because, as Dr. Dre said, I got my mind on money, money on my mind. That's your meditation. So whatever your mind is on, that's what you're meditating on. So understanding, and then you're not just thinking about it, there's an imagery that goes with that. Okay. So you get what I'm saying? So it's the mindfulness, in my way, I call it the 5 superpowers, or, we're talking about trust with insight, and you have effort with poise or focus, and mindfulness cultivates them and balances them. So those are the things that, if you are bringing more mindfulness, or you're becoming more knowledgeable, like meditation means to contemplate, which means to look at repeatedly and look at closely. So the more we focus on things and more we understand it, it grows. And so when we love something, the idea is to nourish it so that it grows. So you might say love and understanding are one and the same. And so if you love using imagery, then the practice of meditation, or what I call the power of mindfulness, is going to help that grow, and you'll figure out how to do it in your own unique way. That's what I love about this. I make suggestions, but the whole idea of these teachings is to see if it's true in your experience. So I offer a teaching, don't believe me, at least believe me enough that you'll see if it's true. And then once you have a direct experience of it, or you have an intuitive experience of it, then it becomes real. And then your faith goes to conviction. So it's really asking the question, is it possible? Yes, it is. It's very possible. And just bring mindfulness and wisdom to it, and figure out how to do that in a way that makes sense and that resonates with you, that feels good for you. You feel good about it, and you feel like you're achieving what you want to achieve.
Okay, that was really helpful, because I was trying to make it 2 things. When in actuality, what you said, you just kind of married the two together and they go hand in hand, and one complements the other, because it's all in a broad sense pretty much the same, but just a little different. So that was really good to get that clarification.
So it's a difference between what's conscious and what's unconscious. So we do a lot of things unconsciously that we think we got to do them conscious in order for them to be real, or to be that's what we're doing. So that's why this practice is looking at it, and we'll look at it and we realize we're imagining or we're making stuff up all the time.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Rolad, I believe I'm pronouncing your name right, but you can pronounce it correctly for us. Asking you to unmute now. Let's see, I forgot to, where are you calling
Can you
from?
hear me?
And what's your question? Yeah, you're with us, I think.
I'm calling from Vermont, and I am based on my own personal experience, and I'm sure many of the participants. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to folks who are living with chronic severe pain and are trying to mitigate that through mindfulness and the static of sitting and trying to be quiet when you have your pain screaming in your whole being. And if you could just kind of maybe give us some advice for those of us who are trying to stay sane when we hear our bodies yelling at us all the time.
Yes. So it's very personal what you're asking me, because I came to this practice because of chronic pain.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes. So not only emotional pain, but migraine headaches and chronic back issues. I've been going to chiropractic since 1975. So what's that, 45 years? Something like that. So so the idea is to notice that. So I did this experiment. So because when I just celebrated 36 years of sobriety a couple of weeks ago, well, the 30th of July. And when I got clean, now all of that pain and everything was right there, because I was self-anesthetizing on some level. So I learned how to relate to my pain. That's why I got into meditation and understanding mind-body process and understanding how to observe pain so that I could see it and not make it into suffering. Okay, what do I mean by that? So because I was in recovery, I needed a lot of dental work done. So I got root canals and all sorts of things. And so I find myself experimenting. I go into the dentist, and as soon as they turn the drill on, I'm like this and all of that. And then I realized that, no, just relax into it, just let it go. And then I just noticed it was just pressure, and I could just feel the pressure, and I could ease up more and more. But the memory of the pain, or with chronic pain, was causing me to act as if the pain was there, because our nervous system doesn't know the difference between what we think about and what we experience. And so I like to use this analogy. Let's say this is an old-fashioned blackboard, and I do this. See, we experience that as if there's no blackboard there. So when we experience pain and we have an image or sense or memory of pain, we're relating to the memory and not the present situation. And so when I started to be able to understand that even when I did have a little discomfort, it arises and it fades. It doesn't stay the same. It's moving up and down. So my relationship to the pain was the most important thing. And I get to the point sometimes, even now, I'll take pain meds when I have to, but for the most part, I can just be with the pain. So I'm not bringing mental anguish to the pain, but that bare sensation, just seeing it and feeling whatever's there without being in the story about it. And this is what I learned when I first started doing this, is that I was going around saying I'm in pain all day, when in actuality, I wasn't in pain all day. But I had the idea that I was in pain all day, and I had the memory of the pain. So I was experiencing pain all day. But then I noticed there were pockets where there was no pain. And the more I noticed there was no pain, I had more moments and pockets of no pain, or being able to manage it, if that makes any sense. And so it's just playing with that and understand there's a boundary, or there's a pain threshold. And the idea is I call it, you can get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So, but it's not like all at once. It's with grace and ease, it's with compassion, and with honoring the limit and honoring when I'm in pain, and they're saying, okay, time out, I need to take a break from this. And instead of just pushing forward and trying to conquer it all at once, but just noticing, yeah, okay, so I have back issues. So I acknowledge that, I accepted that. And I don't see myself that way, but I've been going to chiropractor. I have to do a lot of different things, and I got other issues as well, pain stuff, and I still get migraines, and then migraines usually telling me that I'm doing too much. And because I have this practice, I can relax and be at ease and let go. And then because the migraine becomes a kind of like a barometer for me being in a stress level is too high. And for someone like me who's too cool to be stressed out, my body tells me, dude, you can say whatever you want, but there's some stress in here. so then to look at, well, what is this and how to relate to it in a way where I can learn from it. And it's telling me something that I have to attend to. That's my perception of it, rather than this is a curse and this is something I'm always going to have and I'm hurting all the time. So that self-talk and that view, that point of view can be more of the issue than the actual pain. So there's one pain, but then we're adding more pain on top of that. And when you have chronic pain, it's a lot of it is the nervous system is programmed. And if it thinks about something or it gets an association, then it goes into that pain reaction.
Did you want to follow up at all, really?
What I'm hearing is accepting it, but not delving into the story of it, and is sort of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I talk about the 4 A's: awareness, acceptance, and that's where it's really challenging, the accepting of it, and then the compassionate action. And then after the compassionate action, there's the assessment, what worked, what didn't work. But the main thing is just giving ourselves the benefit, if we can, dealing with the pain in a way where, like for me, I had a struggle taking meds or not taking meds. And I realized that when I had surgeries and everything, if I took the meds early on and continued to take them, then I could wean off of them. But to say no meds or not to have a break from it, that's something you have to work out with your physician and your pain doc or whatever. But it's really more about finding these pockets of ease, of stillness, of non-pain, so that they can grow and you can start to accept it. But it's challenging. It's very challenging, but it's possible to deal with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, George, maybe we'll do one more
Okay.
here.
Sounds good. I trust you feel it out. We'll go from there. Yes.
Let's see. You don't have, so Erica, you are live and you're unmuted and you're with George. Where are you calling from and what's your question or reflection?
I am calling from Colorado in the mountains, and just so grateful to have you here in my little nest here today. I too suffer, I have Lyme's disease, and I have a lot of joint pain and other, little obstacles to feeling well and vital. And I really appreciated Rolad's question as well. And I just wanted to say that what you just spoke, the pockets of ease are for me when I can see my experience of being in my body without the sort of obvious language that presents itself, like pain and stiffness and fatigue, and just notice sensation and it's kind of like that T.S. Eliot thing, see it for the first time as something that I don't immediately have to put a word to or an assessment with. And, to kind of stay in that gap before I try and put language to it. And I wondered if you had anything more about like how to, like you talked about making those pockets of ease longer. What is your strategy for how to work with that little moment?
Yeah, so it's almost like exposure therapy. You just it's really, it's like yoga. It's like, okay, there's the limit. And maybe I'm going to push through it another 10 seconds or another, I won't even say push through it. I'm going to ease through it, flow through it. And then continuing to build on that, right? But a lot of it is the practice of bare awareness, what I talked about, of bare attention, just being with the sensation and noticing that it's going to rise and pass away, it's going to change, it's going to radiate to different places, and just looking at it. Because as long as we call it pain, then we have a reaction, a program reaction to it, just the language we use, and just really wanting on some level, okay, I'll be with the pain just to get rid of it. That doesn't work. There's got to be, and sometimes we don't know that until we are doing it. Because on the conscious level, we say, yeah, okay, I'm really with it. But on an unconscious level, we haven't really accepted. So the acceptance piece is so huge, of being able to just surrender to it and say, okay, this is what it is. And I'm going to make space for it. And what is the lesson for me? Or, you know, as Viktor Frankl says, suffering ceases to be suffering when we can find meaning in it. And actually, that's what Joe Biden said during when he talked about losing his daughter and his wife. He talked about he had to find purpose. And sometimes the purpose is to share with others how we're feeling and how we're dealing with it, or how we're struggling with it, so we can talk and create space for us to witness, but also to just acknowledge that it's challenging, but there's times when we can do it. And how do we do it? And we talk about it and we practice it, but we open up to the possibility that there's some ease, there's some peace there. So I feel like just having more ease, resting more, because the resting, the stopping, is what Thich Nhat Hanh talks about: stopping, calming, resting, healing. And so we need the calming to be able to rest, and the rest is where the healing happens. And sometimes the healing may be mental and not so much physical or spiritual or emotional. And so it's just creating that space. It's always about creating more and more space.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I sometimes use the analogy of being in labor, which I have been a couple times, and staying open. And you know, the body will move down to the degree that you can stay more open and be with this experience that you're pretty sure is going to kill you. You know, that amount of being with is sometimes so challenging.
Yeah, I had in 2016, I had all kinds of surgery, but one of the things that happened, I had kidney stones. And I had two women tell me the kidney stones was more painful than childbirth. So I had to take their word for it. But I would tell you that excruciating pain that I went through, it was horrific. And so I ended up having pain meds. But so I'm not saying that like, oh, you can deal with any kind of suffering or any kind of pain. There's some pain, man, without the medication, it's not happening. So that's the compassion right there, is to be able to say, okay. But when I had those kidney stones, man, I never experienced anything like that. And I'm a recovering drug addict. So I've been through withdrawal. I've been through a lot of different painful things, but those kidney stones, it's like, so, you know, you talk about childbirth or whatever, but the thing is, I'm still here. Got through it. Yes.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for the questions. Very wonderful. I want to appreciate Soren and Haley and all the folks behind the scenes and all you folks that are on the call, on the chat. I just feel really honored and grateful to be able to share my experience, strength, and hope, and for us to have, because I see this as good friends and suitable conversation, which is nothing more than the teachings and how do we talk about it so that we can apply those teachings in our life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, George, for joining us. And if people want to stay in touch with you, website and just kind of, I know you're on social media.
Yeah, so georgemumford.com is the website, and there's and I also have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, if you go to my website, you can get more information. Then there's at least one free gift. I don't know what we're giving. And I do right now, and I'm just finishing up on a six week study group for my online course, The Mindful Athlete Secrets to Pure Performance, and of course my book. So there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube. I mean, I didn't know this, but there's a ton of stuff that I've done that's on YouTube, and so you can have access to me. But the best place is georgemumford.com. And if you want to email me, connect@georgemumford.com. It's a good place to go.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, and we'll be releasing the conversation with Phil Jackson and John tomorrow, so people can look out for that. So maybe we'll just, let's see, we can unmute people, and you can say, feel free to unmute yourselves. Let's see, sorry. Yeah. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Grazie mille.
Thank you for your thoughts and
Thank you for everything.
Welcome.
Thank you, George.
Nice week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
George. Thank you, Soren.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
George.
Hi, Macy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are amazing.
Hi, Carla.
Thank you.
Everyone,
Lolita.
people. Oh, the masterpiece is waving at me. I love that. Yes.
It is Mumford.
Right straight.
They say.
Denise.
Bye-bye.
Australia.
Hey.
Thank you, George.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Laura.
Bye all.
Real teacher. Bye, Esther.
Bye, Esther.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Harry Thomas, thank you.
Love you, Miss
Thank you.
Good job. Incredible.
Hey, Jenny. Beautiful.
Hi,
everybody. That was awesome.
Hello.
That was so awesome. Congrats on your
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, all gang.
Bye-bye.
George, you are terrific. Hello.
Thank you.
My day. And my
Bye.
week.
I am so.
GeorgeMumford.com.
It's connect@georgemumford.com.
Oh, yeah, please.
I'll put it down.
Blessings to all.
What Perry said non-verbally, that was beautiful.
Nice.
Hey, Perry and Tomas.
All right. Bye.
Bubble kisses blown. Bubble kisses of magic.
All right. I'll take it all. Appreciate
Take
it.
it all. Real love and gratitude.
Yes. All right. Same here.
You are so centered
Yeah.
in this group, George. You're so much a part of it.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Appreciate being here. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks.
Honesty
Yeah.
is mind-blowing. Oof.
The recovery and the T.S. Eliot don't hurt.
Yes.
Yes. I wasn't already in love with you after that 1 second at a time. They
Yeah.
really nailed the 1 second at a time part of mindfulness.
Yes.
After 35 years, you guys know.
Yeah. Suffering does that. No struggle, no swag.
I like that. I love that.
Yeah, I love that one.
That's your tagline is your swag line. I love it.
Yeah. I definitely got swag. I'll admit that.
Yeah. Swagger.
Well, so George, what happened to your body when you were remembering that chronic pain, even though you weren't in pain?